Hi, everyone. I'm AJ. You'll be your host. Thanks for coming. The topic for today is sustainable architecture for a better tomorrow. And this is part of our Religions for Peace UK Interfaith Network EcoPeace Cafe series. And a bit about myself, I'm the National Coordinator of Young Humanists UK, and I also serve on the board of Humanists International and the National Multi-Faith Youth Centre. And through that national work in the UK, I also work with the steering committee of Religions for Peace, which is how I'm coming to host this event today. So the EcoPeace Cafe series, of which this is one meeting in the series, is a dialogue session that seeks to empower youth, explore solutions and share inspiring stories and strategies and policy proposals that can create a sustainable and thriving world for the future generations based on our faith and belief backgrounds and inspired by them. So just to give a general structure, layout of the meeting today, it's going to be around 90 minutes. So we're going to start with an icebreaker brainstorming session first, and just to get our juices flowing. And then we'll move to a presentation from our guest speaker, Marilyn, who's joining us from Durban, South Africa. And that takes me about 20-25 minutes. And then after her presentation, we'll go into breakout room sessions, or depending on how the size goes, we may just stay in this room, depending on if we can make it work. And then after we come back from the breakout rooms, we'll have a feedback session, and that's going to be quite luxurious, about 20 minutes. We can share what we talked about and feedback. And then we'll close with some Q&A for Marilyn directly, and then do some closing remarks from her. So I think that's all I need to say at this moment. Again, we are recording this, so if you prefer to have your video turned off, please do, but otherwise please do keep it on. That will make for a better discussion. I think that's all the housekeeping out of the way. I'd like to hand over now, if that's okay, to Greshma, who's going to guide us through the icebreaker opening session. Thank you.
Thanks, AJ, and welcome everyone. Welcome to EcoPeace series. So before starting the introduction, maybe we can take 2 minutes and think about, or if you have a paper and pen, you can draw any symbol or image that represents sustainability and its relationship to architecture, like relationship with architecture. So yeah, take 2 minutes. It can be anything. It can be a design of a building, like your vision, like how a sustainable building will be, or any kind of nature inspired design. One more minute. hope you finish drawing and you can start sharing. So when you share, you can share your name and where you are coming from, and also briefly explain your drawing and the symbolism behind the drawing. So please start. Maybe AJ can start and then we can.
Host privilege, I guess, in starting first.
Yeah.
I've drawn very badly a tree inside of a glass kind of case, because that really, to me, that's what, when I think of sustainable architecture, that's what I think of. Very open buildings with lots of glass, daylight coming in, that makes a better space, living space to be in, and where buildings that are functional, but then also that are one connected with nature, with gardens or sort of vertical gardens, and then trees inside of buildings, which I always like being around.
Yeah.
And
Thanks.
I'm from London, which when we don't have that many of these kind of buildings compared to other countries, which I'm quite jealous of.
Thanks, AJ. And yeah, Maeve.
Well, I cheated a bit because I didn't have pen and paper, so I wrote some words that made me think of sustainable architecture instead. So I wrote adaptable, resilient, holistic, low impact, and responding to our changing climate without driving the crisis.
Thanks. Thanks. Sarah.
Hi. Yes, I drew badly as a sort of little house amongst some trees, because I was thinking about how the aim is to sort of place like housing and the needs of people around the existing natural world, instead of trying to adapt the natural world to suit our needs. And I'm in London.
Thanks, Sarah. And James.
Right, so I am notoriously bad at drawing, so I apologize. But I drew something which is very unimaginative, and that's a wind farm, which I think is what everyone sort of thinks of when they think of eco-architecture. What I would have drawn, had I been more artistically talented, would have been the Cambridge Eco Mosque, because that's actually a very, very good example of a sustainable building architecture, which is faith-based as well. But unfortunately, I don't have that talent. So I'm just going to say the Cambridge Eco Mosque as well.
Thanks, James. And Nadalia.
So it's interesting that almost drew the same. So it's
Wow.
well, I wanted to create an ecosystem, and so technically it's a building which is kind of in tuned, or like how to say it. Sorry, I forgot my English. But anyway, just everything is in harmony, and whatever we build or whatever materials we use for building our houses, so it's kind of natural, and then it helps to cool down the temperature of the earth, and then also it's in line with the living, so it supports diversity of different species, and kind of the perfect ecosystem, kind of everything comes flows in harmony with each other. So yeah, that's what I would think of sustainable architecture. So
Thanks, thanks, Natalia. And Merlin, do you want to share?
Yeah, sure. Wow, you have like done such great answers. Yeah. So mine is just like it's a building representing, I mean, architecture buildings, but it also a heart that surrounds everything. Because for me, love and passion is everything that drives this career, and also a leaf as well, and the earth representing nature. But also, like when I go into my presentation, I will talk about the challenges as well. So for me, without passion, love, and dedication, everything just falls apart. So yeah.
Thanks, Marilyn, and thanks everyone for sharing. And we already have like lots of vision about how sustainable architecture is. So welcome to this session, and over to you, AJ.
Thanks, Grishma. Are you not going to show us yours?
It's a very small, like I really wanted to build something on bamboo plants. So to be like very minimal and very eco-friendly, small house on bamboo plants. So that's my, yeah.
Fair enough. I'd say I'm shocked that Natalia drew that in the same amount of time. Did you have the same amount of time as all of us? That's really amazing. Well done. Because I have to say I didn't use paper, so I'm being more eco than you guys. That's my little humble brag there. Okay, great. Thanks all for that. And now we've got some of our juices flowing. Let's move on to meet Marilyn properly and then set up her presentation. Marilyn is currently based in Durban, South Africa, and she obtained her Bachelor of Architecture Studies at the University of KwaZulu-Natal, Howard College. Marilyn works as a graphic artist and 3D designer and an architectural technologist with 16 years of experience in the realm of social and sustainable architecture. As well as that, Marilyn is also serving Religions for Peace on the youth media team and in the Interfaith Youth Climate Forum. Without further ado, I'll hand over to Marilyn.
Well, so thank you so much. And hi to everyone again. And it's lovely to be here again in this space on this platform, sharing with everybody. So thank you to Religions for Peace United Kingdom and the Interfaith Youth Network, and to EcoPeace Cafe. So I pray whatever I share with you in this webinar, it's very brief information and it will inspire you, but also allow you to have a different perception about architecture, and also be more willing to be more engaged with sustainable architecture in practical ways that will benefit the earth and the community. And just a brief outline of what my talk will be about. I will start with a little bit of theory and then give a background to sustainable architecture, then move into some simple technologies, and then also show 2 case studies of 2 projects we've done in South Africa. And then these case studies are actually from the 2 companies I work with, which is Derek van Eden Architects and East Coast Architects. And these are social and sustainable architectural companies that is engaged in many community social and sustainable architecture. But also, like, we practice architecture very differently compared to other countries, right? Because we have different challenges, and architecture is related to the context that it's in. So everybody relates and responds to sustainable architecture in different ways. So I hope that this webinar will inspire all the youth out there that will watch the recording afterwards even, and it'll inspire them to become future sustainable architects, because it's a lack in the profession. Most of the professionals and the architects out there these days are mostly driven by consumerism, cutting edge marketing. It's like, you know, these high-rise buildings and cities. And so this is really coming back to like the roots of architecture, coming back to a simple, humble form of architecture, but also seeing how you can connect it to the earth as well. So like personally for me, like I see, you know, youth as leaders, and that good leadership is displayed in all avenues in life. So it's not only our youth work, our interfaith work, but it's also our profession. and our profession become our worship as well. It's a perception that I engage in, that like the divine in nature are my silent partners guiding me in my work, and my work is there to benefit the community but also benefit the earth. So for me, it's like my profession is the duty that has been given to me by the divine, and I use it to see how I can help others. So because seeing it in that way doesn't like work all the time, and so you met with a lot of challenges as well. And some of the challenges are there'll be lack of funding, there'll be delayed or canceled projects, there'll be difficult clients, there'll be clients that have a lack of interest in green buildings. And it also comes with the price of a difficult task of limited work. Sometimes we unemployed, sometimes companies are closing down. And also it's hard because you're changing mindsets of people, and for them to see architecture and engage in architecture in a different way, because not only are you trying to help the community and the earth, but also you're trying to make a living as well. So it's still your bread and butter at the end of the day. So there's a lot of challenges, and sometimes you will fail. I have to be honest about it. It's a reality. It will leave you despondent sometimes, but I always see the failures as stepping stones to growth and learning. And so in that moment, it builds determination, character, perseverance, and courage, because you try again. And one of my favorite quotes is by Thomas Edison, where he says, "I've not failed, but I've just found 10,000 ways that didn't work." So I always approach architecture with that mindset because of the challenges that come along. And challenges are also, besides sustainable architecture, it's also being a young woman in the field as well, because you're engaging with a lot of male characters as well. So it becomes very, very challenging. And so just to being a little bit honest about the profession, and it's not an easy path. And so it will challenge you, and you have to be ready for that challenge, because you want to see that green design happen, and you want to see creativity happen as well. So before I go into the presentation, I would just like to ask a few questions. We started with a great icebreaker. And I want to know if there's anyone in this webinar who's like already engaged in architecture or are studying or engaged in design and want to be involved in sustainable architecture before I proceed. Okay, I take it. So there's no architecture students here or architects here?
So
I'm
there's
not
no. Oh, sorry.
Oh, sorry, yeah. I'm not an architect student, but I used to work in events. So we were building festivals across Saudi Arabia and Middle East. And I would say I was thinking how we can make our events more sustainable. So, I mean, I had an interest, but I'm not an architect in this matter.
I'm not an architect either, but I do work with partners in architectural firms as part of the prop tech field. We're trying to use artificial intelligence and automation in the property industry. And one aspect of that is reducing the carbon load from embodied carbon and sort of smart buildings, smart sensors, and managing buildings better using AI in a way that humans can't do, and it's more reliable and accurate. So we're working with sort of the ordnance survey and other national institutions here in the UK that have a lot of property data and how to get the best insights from that. So I'm kind of adjacent to architectural concerns.
Okay, that's great. And anybody else, like, do you what can I say? Are you wanting to engage in sustainable architecture or have interest in it?
Yeah, I'm like I don't have any background in architecture, but I'm really interested in learning about sustainable architecture and also like seeing the difference, like how we can bring the difference. And when like I'm from India, and like it's a densely populated country, and also we have the buildings, like it's not for the needs, but people build like big constructions are always happening. So I always wonder like how to share the message of sustainability, and how to communicate the message of sustainable architecture and informed decision making for the like to the people, so they can also be aware about the consequences and necessity of creating more sustainable buildings. So yeah, I really wanted to learn and spread the message. Thank you.
Okay, great. That's great answers. Cool. So let me go into my
Sorry,
presentation.
Marlene, I can just see that Jeeves has raised his hand.
Okay,
Is
cool.
that a comment?
Yeah, I was just going to say really quickly, my dad actually just moved to an eco hotel. I can put it in the chat. It's called One Hotel Mayfair as well. So I don't have a background in eco architecture, but I do find it fascinating. So yeah, looking forward to learn more. But I've engaged with different examples, this hotel being one that I've now gone to, and different eco places of worship. So it is certainly fascinating, and I'm definitely interested.
Okay, cool. That's great answers. Okay, so I will go a bit into what sustainable architecture is about. And then if anybody has any questions, you can just like on the way, like if you want any clarity on anything, you can just like unmute yourself, and we can have a more interactive session. So let me share my slide. Can everybody see my slides?
Yes.
Okay, great. So I'm just going to go a little bit into theory just to give an idea what sustainable architecture is about. It's usually referred to as green architecture that responds to the environment, and it challenges architects to produce building designs that has a minimal carbon footprint with regards to the building processes. And it also incorporates passive design principles, which I will go more into that later, and green technologies as well. And this is a way of responding to the environment in a social and economical way. And what are the importance of sustainable architecture is that it's a resilient way of minimizing infrastructure from being destroyed. So through extreme climate change and harsh weather conditions. And giving you an example, like last year we had floods in Durban, most of the infrastructure was destroyed due to mudslides, and a lot of bridges, hotels, buildings. And this is like a reality that everybody realized, that we are faced with climate change, but we do not have infrastructure and buildings that are resilient enough to handle this. So each country responds to climate change in a different way based on the climatic conditions. And what is important about sustainable architecture is that it's efficient, it's healthier for inhabitants, and it benefits the planet by promoting a cleaner environment. But also it reduces the reliance on non-renewable resources like fossil fuels, and it promotes an innovative way of harnessing natural technologies. And some of that is like wind, which we know through the turbines, solar through solar panels, water, and geothermal, also energy systems. And these systems are usually used in a different way of running buildings. And it also reduces the radiant heat of the building. So buildings give up a lot of radiant heat from their processes when it comes to energy systems, lighting systems, and even like the occupational people that occupy it and the capacity of it. So these energy systems allow a way for radiant heat not to be given off into the atmosphere as well. So what will be the benefits of a green building design? Improved indoor conditions and quality of life by using low energy lighting sources like such as LED lights, passive thermal conditions, ergonomic features, and passive ventilation systems. You can have improved health, stress levels, and overall quality of life. So like some of the things that we use in our design is, hot air risers. So you have like high level vent systems and you allow cross ventilation to happen. It reduces your building from needing things like extra ventilation systems, like air conditioning or something. And also dangerous materials used in building construction can lead to respiratory diseases and allergies and disorders, and sometimes they increase risk of cancer. So it also helps you to be mindful of the materials that you are using to build and whether they are eco-friendly materials in construction. Other benefits is that it helps in saving water, and these are based on reduce, reuse, recycle, and replenish principles. So water waste can be reduced for water efficiency by using like water efficiency plumbing fixtures. There's certain fixtures that are designed in such a way that, less pressure systems, less water outlets, and it helps with the overall running cost of your building, but also installing like specially designed engineered systems like help to purify water. And it helps in water recycling, and it allows for an alternative source of water, such as rainwater harvesting systems, borehole systems, which we use also in our projects, which I will talk about later. The other benefits are that it reduces the strain and operational cost in maintenance, and it increases the efficiency, right, by having shared resources. So we know with our planet, we have an ever-increasing population, large cities, our local shared resources are being threatened, and the demands continue to grow. It's a fast pace of life. So by increasing efficiency in green structures, we reduce the environmental impact of such resources, and we protect it and preserve it for future generations. And this in the long run also helps with the lower maintenance cost of buildings. So you can have an engineered design element that will have a lower energy consumption and reduce energy costs. It may be expensive at first, but in the long-term vision and the long-term running of your running cost of your building, it actually lowers the cost down and it offsets it. I'll give you an example. For example, like solar panels. It's quite costly. It may cost you more to put it in the design, but when you look at it over a long term, you will see that the running cost of your expenditure of electricity or the running cost of your building is actually lower. So these are when you implement like special engineered designs, right? So let's go. Okay. So the other part about benefits about green building design is that you want minimal use, but you want maximum impact. And you want efficient and sustainable materials. So one of the famous terms in architecture is upcycling, and it's like a fashion kind of thing. And it's a new thing because back in the days, architecture, it was very hard to practice sustainable architecture. But the world is shifting and everyone's seeing that this is more the way to practice and the way to go because of our climate change conditions and the way the nature of life is, with mass globalization and over consumerism. And so sustainable architects, engineers, and green designers are tapping into existing resources to reduce carbon footprints, but save natural resources. And in that way, we protect our ecosystems. And by implementing sustainable strategies into the design, like reducing waste, preserving natural resources such as wood and water, protecting our air supply, and limiting energy use, green building companies are like getting more efficient in putting up structures that can stand the test of time. So, and as a result, it reduces the carbon footprint, it reduces the energy processes that are involved in construction. It's one step at a time. It's in a way of saving the planet by using natural and recycled resources. And I will go more into detail about what kind of materials we could use to bring this kind of benefit. And so one of the most important thing about architecture, and this is what I've learned from my boss, who's a sustainable architect and being in this like field for the last 16 years, is that you got to think globally, but you've got to act locally. So this is a term by a Scottish town planner, Patrick Geddes. And what it really means is that, you know, in South Africa, in Afrikaans, we use this language, local is lekker, which means local is great, because the more you think local and the more that you are local in terms of employment, in terms of construction, in terms of your building resources, you produce less waste. So the total energy waste and the total energy consumption is less. And you source your building material to be local. So there's no extra cost needed for construction. Natural resources are conserved. The carbon footprint is decreased. The technology is economical. And the technology can be employed and it can be replicated using local resources. So this was like the one fundamental rule. And the main thing we learned is that think globally, because see how your actions will affect the now, the present, how it will affect the future, how it will affect the future generations, how it will affect your community, how it will contribute to things globally, but you are acting locally because you are trying to minimize your footprint. And so now I go into like some sustainable architectural interventions. And these are like some of the things we use in our design and in our buildings. So all these pictures you see here are from our previous projects. And as I said, people respond to architecture differently. It depends on context, it depends your clientele, it depends your community, it depends who you're engaging with. And we've been like lucky to have like funding projects where we've had outside funding that came for the sustainable parts of the project. And some of our like outside funders, you know, were like really amazing people like Charlize Theron, Alicia Keys, Oprah Winfrey, where they wanted to do projects in South Africa. And so they wanted to do like sustainable projects. And if you look at the first project, I'll go more detail about the school we did in Limpopo. But what we did here is we used green roofs. And one of the main thing about green roofs is it reduces the radiant heat of your building and it gives you thermal mass as well. So, you know, it cools your building down, it retains heat when it needs to, it lets off heat when it needs to. So green roofs was a big thing in our design, but also because we are social architects, we did a lot of vegetable plantings, planting of trees. You know, these vegetable organic gardens in the design help get the community. And also we use a lot of reed bed systems where it filtered the water and a lot of rainwater harvesting systems as well. And then you can see local natural materials, like if you see at the bottom here, we did a project in Limpopo and Kokstad. And we look at what are the available materials in the area. Stone was one of the major materials that was surplus. So we use stone into the construction and into the design and into the thinking. Bamboo or wood was like available in the northern parts of KwaZulu-Natal. We used that into the design. Earth construction. So earth construction is amazing because what we found was, you know, they in the communities we were working with, they were rural communities. There were a lot of unemployment. So we did a research who were the unemployed people in the communities. We got them together. We had skills training. We had workshops with them. We provided employment for them, and we taught them how to use earth construction. And so we did earth compressed bricks. And what we found was like earth construction, when we went into the classroom in winter, it was so much warmer, you didn't need a heater. And when we went there in summer, it was cooler, you didn't need air conditioning or a fan. Whereas if you went into a brick classroom, it was the opposite, you know? In winter, it's really cold, in summer, it's really hot. And if you do not have insulation in your building, you're dealing with like harsh conditions. And that's when people bring out the air conditioning and the heaters, and then it like blows up your energy processes. And then there was shipping containers. Now, we are a world full of consumerism, mass globalization, and we trade a lot. So there's surplus of shipping containers. And, it's usually just like lying around. So we found a way of bringing that into design. And shipping containers, we've used it for homes, mobile clinics, mobile schools, mobile labs, computer labs. And it's a great way of like using what's there and repurposing it. And then the last examples, there's many more examples. I just took a few just to give you an idea of the thinking that goes behind things. The last example is biogas digesters and envirolus. So there are conditions where you have no water systems. And the envirolu is like the most amazing toilet because it's a toilet system that works without water. And basically, there's a special bacteria that is put into the chamber of the toilet. And so it converts the stools into a powder. And you can literally take this powder and sprinkle it back into Mother Earth, into nature. So there's no unhygienic conditions. There's no like cholera or, you don't have that problem. And especially in areas where there are no water. And, it's an effective way of dealing with waste management. And then the other thing with the biogas digesters, which we had, you would see this circular round structure here with the brickwork on top. We built that at a school, and from the vegetable gardens, whatever the offcuts and waste were, we will put it into this chamber with specialists, helping us design it. We'll convert the gas into, from these offcuts, it's converted into gas. And these gas is used, stored, and with these gas monitors, it is fed back to the kitchen. And then you're using the same thing to cook. So you really don't need electricity. You're not relying on electricity. You're not relying on outside gas that you need to get from the garage or some manufacturer. You're using natural resources and you're converting it into gas. So as you can see in that one picture there of the flame that we got produced at the school kitchen. And these schools, they feed kids and they have feeding schemes. So it becomes a self-sustaining project where the vegetable gardens, it's feeding with the produce from it is feeding the kids, the community, and in return, it's also giving us gas to cook for it as well. So these are like some of the systems that can be explored. There's many out there, and I just give you a few examples because this is what we've been like engaging in our projects. And then looking at it on a social level. So for us as social architects, you don't just stop at architecture. It's about engaging with the community. And what we found is when you engage with the community, there's less vandalism. People take ownership of the building. People love the building. People engage with the building. It's theirs. It's personal. And so we would have youth workshops with kids, whether it's artwork, or we would provide them with cameras and they will take it home and take like pictures of their whole community. And then we'll come back and have like a display and engaging with them, teaching them about architecture and what would they like to see in their school or in the buildings. We would have, as I mentioned before, people from the community who do not have employment, get them on board. We teach them about artists, mosaics, construction, and get them involved in the building process. And out of it came like beautiful African traditional designs and mosaics. And, it becomes about empowering the others, empowering the community as well. And then the last one are just examples of upcycling. So some examples of how you can upcycle an architecture is tires, the excess tires. I mean, like the tires in the cars. So you can use that in construction design with earth construction, and you can get amazing buildings, including plastic bottles. I'll go more into an architect that explores with plastic bottles and how he uses that in construction. And what they do is you fill the plastic bottles with more plastic waste and you get it to its right integrity, its right, engineered system. And you can use it in the building construction. And it's something that can come up very fast, especially if you're facing situations in countries where a tsunami has hit and it's like destroyed a lot of infrastructure. So these kind of like systems are like quick way of like building quickly, but also it has to be within building regulations and within, structurally engineered designs. So you don't put anybody in like, danger of the construction falling down on them. And then I like to move on to some case studies. So in this case studies, I would say the school that I spoke about, right? So it's called Vele High School. It's in Limpopo. And I literally worked on this project for 5 years of my life. So architecture is a long-term thing. I mean, you've got to fall in love with it because it's not a quick thing. And especially if you're trying to implement sustainable architecture and you're trying to make a difference in the community, you've got to fall in love with it. And if you look at the school basically was these kids more up in the mountains, in the rural areas. They did not have classrooms. Their classrooms were broken down. They were sitting under a tree. It's cold conditions. They get attacked by animals as well because they're more up into the mountains. And they would have just a plastic bottle with them. This plastic bottle would have warm water. And when it gets cold and this water's gone cold, they sent home. So it was harsh conditions that they were trying to get a school system working and trying to get an education for themselves. And so with Oprah Winfrey and Creating Schools NPO, we got involved as sustainable architects in this project. And as you can see, out of this design came a whole community hub. So what came out of it was a library, a computer lab, staff facilities, security, specialist labs, indigenous planting, vegetable gardens, a nutrition center, besides the classrooms, a hall, a clinic, and sports fields. They never had spaces to play soccer and engage in sports. So it became a whole kind of thriving place for them where they could actually learn. And so it was approaching schools in a different way with a different design and a different thinking way. It's just not about a classroom and a teacher, you come there and you leave, but there's more to it. And how can it support the community? So I'm going to play a quick video for you on this project and what happened in the project. And we actually got one of the students from the school to actually do the video with us. And she takes you through the school and she shares with you what it's all about. And then I'll play the video and then I'll move on to case study 2. So let me just get the video in order. Just let me know and confirm if you can hear sound, right? Were you able to hear sound?
Yes.
Okay, great.
Located within the rolling hills of the Bembe district of Limpopo province, this once dilapidated rural school has witnessed immense transformation to become a pioneering South African educational and community resource.
I'm Blessing, and I'll be your junior tour guide for the day.
Part of the Creating Schools initiative, the project based its development on input from the local community. This school started under a tree and today is a shining beacon of sustainability designed by East Coast architects in collaboration with the Bembe district community.
I call this tree Mommy because it's like, I love this tree, sorry, because it's like the first tree that kids actually got taught at. This was the first school. The architects and the people that were building the school decided to leave this tree to show the respect that they have for the history of this tree.
The project boasts numerous sustainability and green architecture interventions, including a digital weather station to create effective solar design, rainwater harvesting strategies, green roofs, waterless toilets, and food gardens.
You look at the classes, these classes have got good things for us. In winter, they are not cold, they are just warm. In summer, they are cool.
I'm going to show you the two different switches. The white one, electricity switch, which is supplied by ESCOM. So when there's load shedding or when there's no electricity, we move over to the red one, which the red one is like it's electricity from the solar supplies. This is our school garden, and the thing is, our school has decided to actually plant vegetables and different kind of greens to actually make extra money for the school. We do not use no pesticides here. The manure is actually like natural manure. They mix cow dung and etc. So we actually use homemade stuff. These tanks have water that we use in our toilets to wash our hands, and this water cleaned, and then it goes back to our toilets. So it shows that water is never wasted here at school. Each and every drop counts.
Science labs and IT centers were added, and pupils are also trained to serve as guides in nearby game reserves. The use of local resources, mainly stone and masonry construction, reduces the carbon footprint and invests in local economies.
Instead of going to buy materials to actually make the school look nice, they actually decided to use materials from around here. And they actually created a whole lot of jobs for people here to help and build the school.
And once again, the relationship to the community is vital, as evidenced by the Community Resource Center and Business Center, which are located within the school.
In the past, we were doing well, even though there were no infrastructure. But now that we have these beautiful buildings, we are aiming high to produce better results. And in order to produce better results, we have agreed to work an extra mile.
Okay, so that was the one school, and literally that was 5 years of my life, really from sketch design, concept thoughts, working with I don't know how many green technologists, engineers, clients, and then seeing it to completion to construction and engaging with the people, the students and everything. So that took 5 years, but it was a great learning experience and I learned a lot from it. So now I'm going to go into the next case study. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen again. And this case study is one of the projects that's currently happening right now in the office. So this is a sustainable ashram project happening in Kwadukuza in KwaZulu-Natal. It's like taking sustainable architecture into faith spaces, right? So this is a temple and it's for an organization. And it's also showing how you can have fun in architecture, right? So I had a lot of fun in this design because literally it was getting creative. And so here involved a lot of symbolism where we use the flower of life geometry. The master planning is based on the Om symbol, which is a Hindu symbol, and you can see in the design itself, the buildings is shaped in an Om shape. And basically we are trying to also bring in all those sustainable aspects in the design and the processes itself. So on the site itself, we have planted more than 4,000 trees from the time this project has started. I've been 8 years on this job, but because it's a NPO fundraising project, it doesn't happen same time. You have to wait for the money to get fundraised and come in. So it's a lifelong work, and you've got to love it. You've got to, like, you know, be dedicated to it, and you want to see this creativity, you want to see this thing come to life, and you want to see this design happen. It's having a long-term vision and passion for things. And here is like the design itself. The master planning, the first picture shows you of that Om symbol and how the buildings are laid out. And then it comes into the 3D of it. And I will show you a 3D presentation model of it. It's a few minutes. So architecture can get really fun. You know, you come with a physical building model. We did a physical model of the whole site. It's like, you know, presenting your ideas. And also the 3D element on it. I love working in SketchUp. I've actually built a 3D model that you see of these pictures, and then taken it into Lumion and rendered it. So you get to operate in the virtual 3D space, which is really exciting. And to tell you a bit on some of the concepts and design principles we've used in this ashram project, and these principles can be used in faith communities for any other project, whether it's a mosque, whether it's a church. So I'm just giving you a breakdown of some of the ideas and how we approach this project. So to allow for transparency of process, you know, you want to build positive relationships. You know, we have community workshops and engage with the community, and what faith organization there is that have their faith community, you engage with them. And to encourage innovation on design and construction techniques, we explore innovative materials and systems. Like with this design specifically, I said again, you will see in the 3D model that we're looking at full green roofs. So it's low-key buildings. It's just the temple itself that stands out in this unique form because it's based on the flower of life principle. And then you look at principles of how it can develop environmental and social sustainability by looking after the earth. So you've got to have a long-term vision for this. Integrate passive and sustainable energy design principles. For example, orientation. You orientate your building north, it's cooler in summer, it's warmer in winter. Context, you've got to relate to how you see the context in the site. The existing water pond system, there's existing ecology life, there's existing nature there. It's actually an agriculture site. So it's responding to all that in the context in the site and the environment, taking that into consideration of the design. Seeing how it can enhance the cultural and religious, spiritual, and community expression and upliftment. This is for social upliftment. And that's what we've done with like using the Hindu sacred architecture of the Om symbol and the flower of life. The flower of life is more of a general, what can I say, sacred geometry. And again, economy, local employment, local construction, local materials, everything we do is all local based, and it's to encourage social upliftment, employment, but also tourist attraction. So this place is meant to be sort of like a place where people come for pilgrimages, they come to learn, there's an academy, there's, you know, music and dance classes, there's a media, library, everything in relation to that faith structure, which is Hinduism. So it's like bringing that to the community as well. And then it looks after the welfare of people through faith organizational structures, like whatever faith organization, look after the community. We have feeding projects every weekend. We have like devotees from the organization coming there and planting. Like me, literally myself, I used to go there on weekends, and you know, we cleared the whole boundaries. We planted like over 2,000 martingulas and kai apples. We've planted, like, as I said, over 4,000 trees. We've got sponsorship for them. And literally, like, the grass that we put there, like, I've like been with devotees and planted myself grass. So it's getting active into the design and getting involved in it. It promotes ecology by nurturing wildlife, animals, indigenous plants. We have a lot of indigenous and wildlife there. It reduces impact and ecological footprint by adding value to Mother Earth by user and occupation. So it's looking at recycle, reuse, and reduce principles, lessening the burden of the current overload municipal grid infrastructure by incorporating alternative energy systems, as I mentioned earlier, with regards to water and solar. So we've got boreholes there. We've got filtration systems in the design. We're looking at rainwater harvesting as well, LED lights, and even solar panels, but that depends on the funding. And then promoting agriculture. We've got a lot of planting happening there also on site. This is for environmental upliftment. And it's about bringing different people together through community participation and through your faith organization as well. So yeah, there's many ways to explore this. So what I showed you before of the school was how the design unfolded and what was a built structure. And now what I'm showing you is how we're engaging in the design space of conceptualizing and thinking so that we can lead to an end product of a building. So at the moment, we've done the piling construction on site, and we're trying to get the precast concrete structure up, hopefully by end of the year or early next year. But it depends on the funding. But also it's about letting you know that architecture is not an afterthought when it comes to green building design and sustainability. And lots of people do that. They make it an afterthought where they just add some trees, add some this and that, and it's like, I call it a green design. It's not that. Sustainable architecture has to be the first thought, and it happens from the very beginning, from inception, from design, and it must follow through. And you have to see that vision follow through. And it'll get revised, it'll fail, all these things will happen. But as I said, it's perseverance and to keep going. Because I'm 8 years on this project, and all we've done is just got to the piling, So it's a long-term vision and a long-term, partnership. And you've got to fall in love. And so I just want to show you the 3D design of it to give you a little bit of excitement about architecture and what you can do in the virtual world, because I love it. I love working in 3D. I love exploring the virtual space. I mean, it's like literally being in a PlayStation game. So it's a lot of fun, and that's where your creativity unfolds and your design thinking unfolds. And it's a lot of fun. So let me just play the video for you. Okay, so everyone can see my screen? Great. So as you can see, the design, the temple is there on the top, which is the of the Om sign. And then, we have buildings around, we got a recycling center, we've got an amphitheater, dining, meditation gardens, mandala, also encouraging sport activity. It become a total hub, a community hub, even with accommodation as well for people to stay and live there. And then now you see how the Om and it's translated into 3D, and you can see the buildings and it's the Om sign, and the rest of the building is just big roofs and below structure blending with the earth. This is the actual design of how the site looks. So I literally modeled the whole site up based on the survey, and this is what the whole site really looks. And so we want to create water ponds there. And this is basically a mass model when you're trying to give your client a vision and a concept of what the space can be, what it can look like, what it will look on site. And then this is the temple itself. This is how it looks. So it brings out that whole flower of concept and pattern. And what's great in 3D is that you can explore the lighting patterns, day and night. You can explore how the light is the design. So this is a slick way of saying, sustainable architecture can be humble, it's a first circuit. But in this project, you're seeing it in a more elaborate way, but in a basic structure. And what's great too, you can zoom in, you can like explore it, give everyone the vision of it. And like, if it were to be built, this is what you would engage with it. And then you can also zoom in and walk into your building. And inside where we're looking, where all the deities would be, you know, the upper space to be like painted ceilings. So, you know, exploring art into the design, and then having a deity dome at the top. So, and also it brings out that whole growing out of the flower black pattern and translating it in an architectural way, right? So that was the 3D design at the moment. Yeah, and I'm sitting with that project, yeah. And it's exciting, but I really hope it gets built. I really hope it comes to life. And that, again, we have to be realistic in terms of funding. And yeah, and just to wrap up my presentation, I want to share with you some further reading resources and research. And these 3 resources and research I'm sharing with you is actually from my boss. He encourages us to do a lot of reading. He was also my lecturer on campus. So it's like amazing to have a boss that was your lecturer and you can like just talk for hours about architecture. So the first one is Confessions of an Eco-Sinner. It's by Fred Pierce. And this book is amazing. I mean, if you want to get scared about how the system and globalization work, this is the book. It can scare you because it's literally, this guy tracks five things from his house. I think it's chocolate, whether it's green beans, his wedding ring. And he traces it and he traces the process of it and where it began, where it leads to. And it's amazing of how he goes in depth to show the carbon footprint of just one item. So we'll buy it in the shop thinking, you know, it came from the shop and yeah, here it is and it's in my house and I'm using it. But there's so much carbon energy that went into just creating that one thing. And he goes like tracing his cotton shirt that goes back to Bangladesh, that goes back to child labor. And you get like exposed to the processes of like child labor that is making a cotton shirt that you are wearing that you bought in a branded shop. So it's kind of a scary, what can I say, unraveling of the whole system. And he even goes about talking about waste management and how waste is shipped from the wealthy countries to the poverty countries, and how these islands of plastic and all exist in the ocean, and we're just creating more and more waste, you know, with consumerism. And then the second book is also really nice, which I studied in first year of architecture. It's we do theory of architecture, and it's called Small is Beautiful. It's about economics as if people mattered, and it's by E.F. Schumacher. And it's a really nice book because it talks about the whole concept of, you know, think globally, act locally. So it talks about local economics and how supporting each like community or whether it's each country locally instead of importing allows the country to thrive in a way that you would look at economics in a different way. So it's quite an interesting book of like seeing economics with a different thought process and how it could possibly operate differently instead of in a global mass way. And then the last one is my favorite, is architect Michael Reynolds. So he's called Garbage Warrior, right? And he's an architect from Australia. And it's a really nice documentary. I recommend you to go through his life's journey and his battles as an architect and how he tried to get construction done with plastic bottles, as I showed you before. What he does is he gets like the community, you know, collect plastic bottles, they stuff it with plastic and they like put it into construction, and even glass bottles as well. And he calls it earthship construction. So building off the grid, self-sufficient communities. And you can also Google him and you will come across his website called Earthship Construction. And he goes a lot into more ideas and how you can let like engage in this architecture, and he even have workshops, he has internships. So there's like great opportunities to go there and to his academy and learn and stuff. And yeah, he's classified himself as garbage warrior. But it's interesting how he goes into detail about talking about it was so hard to get this construction recognized and seen in Australia, and he ended up in court cases and stuff. But when the tsunami hit India, they approached him for the construction, and within like a week, he had so many homes up and so many people already sheltered after the tsunami. So he says, you know, fighting years in court battles just to get this architecture out there didn't work in one country, but in another country they were like readily available to, you know, see him and engage with him and engage in his architecture. And then lastly, I'd just like to end my presentation by saying thank you so much for this opportunity to share about sustainable architecture. I hope you felt inspired. And it's important, like if you choose to engage in this profession and field, it's important to observe your self-talk and how do you see yourself and find your creativity, because you will meet with a lot of criticism. And I say this coming from, you know, studies like third year architecture. You had like 2 days to design a 30-story building. You had in 1 week to put the whole design out there in terms of technology and design, and you present it in a class of 60 pupils and 4 lecturers. You've got 1 minute to present your design. You can't do it in 1 minute. You are told you are a failure and you failed. So, and then you go straight into like technology tests. So it's a tough profession. I mean, it's very subjective. People see things very differently, and you will be criticized and judged a lot. So you've got to know yourself as a person. And I mean, as I said, as a woman architectural technologist, it's even harder because you're engaging with the in a profession mostly male dominated. But like for me, we had to submit a proposal in a women's magazine asking how do we see ourselves as women architects. And for me, my line was, I'm a speck of dust in a vast universe, searching for creative, meaningful architectural expressions, breathing a purposeful existence in a world engineered with possibilities. And that's basically how I see my profession. You've got to still stay humble in it. You've got to be open, go with the flow, expect failures, recover from failures, expect challenges, recover from it. But also it's a profession you've got to love, be passionate about, and strive for it, put your ideas and thoughts out there, and know that there's lots of possibilities. And no matter what you face, there are always possibilities, and it's unlimited. So yeah, I think that's it from me. And we can explore the breakout room questions and stuff later. And I'm willing to take whatever questions anybody has. So thank you so much.
That was wonderful. Thanks, Marilyn. And yeah, that you really brought across the inspiring message there so well, and you delivered it very forcefully and persuasively. A lot of takeaways from there. So we went a bit longer than we planned initially, but I just thought there was so much in there that it was great to capture all of that. That does mean that we want to finish on time, though. That does mean that we have a bit less time. I think we consider it quite an intimate group already. We can stay as we are and just open up for discussion / also Q&A for the next 15 minutes and just stay as we are, so we maximize the time that we have left. But as I say, a change in plan, but I'm not regretting it at all after that wonderful presentation. Thank you. So glad it was recorded. Okay, so I put some questions in the meeting chat. If you can scroll up and see, there's about 5 questions there. We don't have to address all 5 of them, but just some ways to structure our thoughts and the remaining time that we have left. So the first one is, do you see the possibilities of practically implementing the principles of sustainable architecture in your region context, in your area? The challenges we would face, whether sustainable architecture is helping the climate change crisis or not. And then, yeah, some takeaways and what 3 things that we've learned. So we can dive into any one of those. If anyone has a burning question, they can start. If not, I have a few. Cindy, yes, thank you.
Thank you. Like I always do, I like to answer questions with more questions because in doing all of this, it's because there is a profession, it takes a lot of know-how, and as Marilyn had said, that she's calling herself an architectural technologist, which means that you really actually have to be not only well versed with knowing what's out there, but also be able to harness the technology that is everyday renewing. So that is a challenge that is very difficult to catch up for even professionals, let alone people who are not in the profession. So if you, I'm trying to find a model here that when we hear inspiring projects like yours, we need at least half, or if not more, of what you know that is possible to make new buildings or transform old buildings into these sustainable projects. And in doing so, I hear you say that you're waiting for funding and you hope that it could do. Is there something that communities, faith and belief communities, can actually take part in making it possible, so that you're not just, because people have this idea that if it's something good, it doesn't make money or it takes too long. So the people who have the money don't invest, but that doesn't have to be the case anymore. There are lots of technologies that they can make money out of. But do those people, I mean, do the investors actually know that there are such possibilities, that not only can they do good, that their money will see it come around, maybe not super quick. I see new startups, especially young people starting up their own companies, that say that we don't want to make a lot of money, and whatever we make, we want to plow it back into what we believe in. Is that not a paradigm shift for people to look at investment in sustainables? So that's a question.
I think it's a very good question, and it is a paradigm shift, because in order to do these things, you do need funding. Otherwise, you're just sitting there waiting for this to happen. And if, like, I think what can I say, a lack of knowledge out there in terms of what projects are coming about, or the networking, or like people talking to like people. Because, like, I found when like artists like, you know, Oprah Winfrey and all these celebrities got involved, the projects was quicker to take off, because, you know, you had people who wanted to invest, but it's also networking and knowing the right people and who you're talking to, and getting them to believe and buy in on the design and what the overall intention with the project. But also, I think if knowledge were put out there more, people can actually mobilize themselves to make something happen. I mean, I see it a lot with young students and the young people. I mean, you get community projects where the young students get together, resource themselves, get funding, come together and be involved in the construction and the design, and with an architect, because you always need a professional there, and make things happen. So there's also a possibility for that. But it just means, like, mobilizing yourself, having a vision, seeing where you want to implement the vision, in what community, what context, and then seeing how you can make it happen. But like, I mean, like, for when it comes especially to faith structures, I know if you're creating something new, it's harder because it's for creating new designs and new buildings is much harder, because you are starting from scratch, because you're starting with, like, all the background work, and the background work includes like, it took us 2 years to wait for the land to be rezoned from agriculture 1 to agriculture 2. Then you had to go through the environmental impact assessment. Then you had to go through the WULA application of getting a water land use license. Then you had to go into submission drawings, which you're waiting for the municipality to approve. And then you can actually go into the actual building of it. So that's why it takes like a long time to unfold it. And then you have to mobilize resources and people in terms of marketing and strategies to actually get your funding together. But existing buildings can be much quicker. I mean, if you got an existing building, I mean, there were many church and temple and mosques that came up with existing buildings, and you're just converting it, and you implementing the green technologies in it, whether it's solar panels or rainwater harvesting or the green roofs, or, you know, you may not get the natural design passive principles in it because it's an existing building. The orientation may not be right, or the ventilation may not be right, but you can still work with it and try to bring it to a place of green building or sustainable building.
Thank you. I just want to cite one example, is that buildings, the ones that I know are in India, that they are aiming to be water independent, so that they get one lot of water and they process their own water and clean their own water, and they never need any more new water. They make the water clean for themselves. So they call themselves water independent buildings. And that's an existing building. And that's residents getting together, you know, getting a technologist to work with them, and it happens. It's already happening. So there are things that we can do, but we can't just leave it all to the architects. The people who are using the buildings have to make that demand and not take no for an answer to improving it so that it is a sustainable thing. Thank you.
I totally agree with you on that, because the architect is only there for a short time. The rest of the building is the community and the people that are there, and they have to take care of it. And that's why, like I was saying, like us as social architects, we engage with the community, because the more you engage with them and you get them involved in the processes and the design, they know how to maintain it and look after it. And also it becomes theirs. It's their building and it's occupied by them for life end use.
Thanks, Cindy and Marilyn. Next question or comment? If no one has a burning one, I might take a chance to ask one myself. I was at that school, the Limpopo school. I've not seen that before. That I was really, blown away by that. Did that cause? I guess I'm going to try to squeeze in two questions. One was, did that school have a domino effect and inspire other similar projects? And what are the consequences of that coming off of that? You said that was some years ago. And I was surprised it only took you 5 years, to be honest. I mean, I'm not an architect, but like you said, some other projects go a long, long way. And considering, like, London metropolitan hub building projects and delays and all kinds of things that happen, 5 years, considering that as a layman, it seems like you did a fantastic job only within 5 years, despite, I'm sure, it sort of dragged on. So one, the domino effect of that, and did that inspire other projects? And the other one was, how, in your experience, how open are clients or partners to sustainable architecture from the beginning? I mean, you said there about retrofitting some buildings, and it shouldn't just be an afterthought, but is it possible to, a client will come to you saying, we want this project, and then you can kind of persuade them, or you kind of show them the wisdom and the beauty of sustainable architecture? And does it happen often that they then veer towards sustainable architecture in their vision, or is that not really possible? And you either get a sustainable architecture favorable client from the beginning, or you don't, and you have someone doesn't really care about sustainable architecture. Is there a process whereby you can educate clients towards that, or communities towards that, where they previously wouldn't have considered it?
Great questions. So to answer the first one, yes, the very high school, what came out of it was the extra funding and more funding that was given. It created a program called Creating Schools. And we had somebody in charge of it, and it kicked off. It went well. We did a lot more schools. There was one in Vryheid, Kokstad, and Konabia. But the challenge is, you know, when you're working with municipality, like most of the job is given to like being in South Africa, like a Black identity, right? So halfway through the project, you can get kicked off, which happened to us on one of the projects. We got kicked off, and it was given to another architect, yet we did the design and everything. And so they kicked us out of the construction part. So we were not there to see to the end. And that's because municipality wanted to employ somebody else. And then, and that happened in 2 schools. To think about it, the one we did design it, and we had to hand it over to another architect to also do the construction. It's a challenge because in a country, you know, the employment rate and the work employment, and it's who you engage with, you know, these things happen, especially if it's like government projects and municipality projects. These things are bound to happen. And so the creating schools, it's like eventually when it ran out of its funding, you know, it sort of ended there. But we tried to engage in it in a different way with mobile classrooms. And so we put out a design of using shipping containers in creating like a sort of like a classroom that could be easily assembled, a prototype. And you could like just replicate it in many rural areas that do not have schools. But again, that project as well didn't go very far. So yeah, it's a challenge because you're dealing with different scenarios and different situations. And your second question is engaging with clients. So it happens sometimes, you get lucky, you know, like when you meet a client and you can engage with them from the very beginning and give off your ideas and inspire them and show them the possibilities. And then you get clients who are not really interested in that. They just want to like a high-rise building or something just, you know, to put up that it's just a building. So you have to sort of like engage with them to say, don't you want to explore this? Don't you want to see the possibilities of this? You could add a little bit of this in to make it a little more sustainable. So the situation, it varies. It's like you get lucky sometimes, and sometimes you're just not lucky.
Thanks, Marilyn. And I think maybe the final question with Jeeves, you can squeeze in.
Yeah, apologies. I'll be quick with mine. It's following up on sort of Cindy's and AJ's questions. So say if a faith centre, for example, a place of worship, was to express interest in beginning the process of transforming an existing building, where would they start? Where would we, after this call, advise them to begin? If they were a grassroots organisation, low budget, but had a high intention to begin the process of transforming their building to be more eco-friendly, what would you suggest would be the starting point?
So like with any project, the starting point will be to see what's existing and then see your vision, what you want to change in it. And like in terms of exploring ideas, you know, but you will do this with your professional, because you do need guidance in terms of building regulations, because each country has their own building regulations and their own, what can I say, municipality to deal with. Like, I'll give you an example, like in South Africa, whenever we engage in the project, we have to get the existing plans. It goes through a design process, and then you meeting like what are the regulations of that community. And then you're sitting down with your client. So in this case, I would like, if now I'm engaging with you, I'll be sitting down with your faith organization with you and ask you, what do you envision? What do you see? And coming up with a design and a proposal, and then like seeing how this will impact the construction. So by basically knowing how the construction will be impacted, you can work out to a fee cost and a budget. And then from there, you can take the process further by fundraising or getting people to actually put this budget together. And then you can come together and then resolve the drawing, the plans and everything, submit it to your council, get it approved, and then you can go ahead and do it. So that would be like the simple basic steps. But I think like in terms of ideas and in terms of exploring what's the possibilities of what sustainable interventions and green building designs could be implemented, would be looking at the existing structure, looking at the context, looking at the site, and then seeing from there, because each building responds to a site differently and the context differently. And you can't, something that works in South Africa will not work in London. So it would mean like, you know, I have to look at the conditions of that particular community, context, country, and then from there explore what are the possibilities.
If only you're in the UK, Marilyn, and that's what we're saying. Cindy, with a last thought.
Right. I just want to very quickly, I'm aware of the time and need to let everybody go, but I want to have several, just off the top of my head, brainstorming kind of ideas to see whether we can spark some interest amongst us. So my takeaway from this is that how individuals and non-architects, how to engage them into this knowledge pool so that they can make plans from not knowing what they were before. I have a thing about charity versus profit. When people are looking at giving you money, are they looking at it as a charity, which means that they will lag back, or are they looking at possible profit that can be an impetus or a driving force for them to engage with the technologies? And then we badly need a sustainable list of a list of sustainable measures, elements in buildings, and the possible solutions. We can cite resources. We can find UK architects who are engaged in things like that, and make a showcase of what is possible. Put it all in one place so that people can use it as information or as possible solutions for themselves. And then the last thing I have is educating the politicians. Put it in their faces, don't let them go away. Because if we don't engage in the politicians, and we do not have the kind of policies that help and support this kind of things, we're just running around in circles. Because unfortunately, they hold the planning in their hands, and we can do great big boards of shame boards that you don't let it through because it's not making enough money. Is that what we're about? So don't forget who our councillors are. See whether, look at Grenville. It's just people just don't know what's behind the decisions that they're making. And it's a life and death decision, and climate is now life and death. So those are my very quick things. And if we need to get back together to talk about going forward with those ideas and yours, we don't have enough time to talk about that. But yeah, let's get back together in this group, and we can take it further if there is the wish to go forward with it. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you, Cindy. That's a great note to end on, with the takeaways already made. I think are we going to do a little photo, screen grab photo just for our socials, if you're okay with that, everyone. Okay, I think Natalia's going to take the screen.
So I count. So 3, 3, 2, 1, smile. Thank you.
Right, and then the next, this is part of a series, and the next meeting in this series is
on Saturday 19th.
Great. Great teamwork. Thanks, Rashmi.
It will be on Earth Charter, and we will be discussing about what Earth Charter is and how we can use it in our work at the community level.
And you can follow Religions for Peace on Eventbrite UK, on Eventbrite and socials to get the links to that, same as with this one, online meeting. Okay, thanks everyone for all coming, and have a good day.
Yeah, thank you, Marilyn, for today.
Thank you so much, Marilyn.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much as well.
Bye. Ciao.
Bye.